My M28 fiancé, F28, randomly ended our relationship. Is this abuse? I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this. But here I am, trying to make sense of a whirlwind relationship that has taken a turn I never expected. My fiancé and I had been together for 6 years, and I thought we were on the path to a beautiful future. But recently, everything fell apart. And I'm left wondering if I was the one at fault or if I was caught in something more troubling. Let me take you back to the beginning. I'm a 28-year-old man, and my fiancé is also 28. From the outside, we seemed like a perfect couple. But there were signs that I brushed off as just quirks of her personality. She had a controlling nature that I didn't fully recognize at first. For instance, she would get upset if I didn't do things her way. And she often contradicted herself. She encouraged me to be more social, yet would call me and yell when I went out. She wanted me to spend less time on my phone, but would be glued to hers. It was confusing, to say the least. As we prepared for our wedding, I noticed her behavior becoming more erratic. She had a drinking problem that didn't manifest in constant drinking, but when she did indulge, she often lost control. I tried to be understanding, thinking that everyone deserves to unwind after a long week. We had our moments of connection, like cooking dinner together or going on trips when my work schedule allowed. But I now realized that I was overlooking the red flags. A few weeks ago, everything changed. After a night out with her friends, she came home intoxicated and mean. I initially dismissed her behavior as drunken antics, but when she sobered up, her attitude didn't improve. She unleashed a torrent of criticism, listing all the things she believed were wrong with me. I was shocked. She claimed I didn't make an effort with her family, even though I regularly had dinner with her parents and spent time gaming with her brother. She accused me of being too dependent on her, which I thought was just part of being in a loving relationship. Then came the moment that shattered everything. She told me she deserved better and that I needed to leave. I was devastated. After a few nights at my brother's place, I sought his advice, and he pointed out that her behavior was abusive. I couldn't wrap my head around that. She was still the love of my life, and I wanted to believe that we could work things out. When I returned to our apartment to gather some clothes, I hoped for a conversation, but she flatly refused. Instead, she was cold and hostile, only showing warmth when she wanted something from me. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. She insisted that I pay half the rent, despite the fact that our relationship was crumbling. I reached out to our landlord to discuss the possibility of being removed from the lease, but he informed me that she would have to agree, and she was unwilling to do so. My brother suggested that I could make a case for abuse to get off the lease, but I hesitated. I didn't want to label her as abusive, even if others were urging me to see the truth. She could be kind and loving, and I didn't want to hurt her further. But as I reflected on our relationship, I began to see the imbalance more clearly. I felt trapped in a situation where I was constantly trying to please her, and it was taking a toll on my mental health. As I navigated this emotional turmoil, I found myself questioning everything. Was I really in an abusive relationship? Or was I just overreacting to the challenges that come with love? I started to realize that while she could be a nice person, her controlling behavior was damaging. I was torn between my love for her and the need to protect myself. Now, I'm left with difficult choices. I want to move forward, but I'm not sure how to do that without causing more pain. I've learned that love can sometimes blind us to the truth, and it's essential to recognize when a relationship becomes unhealthy. As I continue to seek clarity, I hope to find a path that allows me to heal and move on, whether that means staying in the apartment or finding a new place to call home. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Just a few weeks ago, my fiancé and I were planning our future together, and now I'm left grappling with the sudden end of our relationship. It all started when she decided to call off our engagement without any clear explanation. I was blindsided. One moment, we were discussing our wedding plans, and the next, she was telling me she needed space. At first, I tried to understand her perspective. I thought maybe she wanted to start fresh in a new place, but she flat out refused to discuss it. It felt like I was talking to a wall. I began to wonder if her behavior was abusive. I reached out to some friends for advice, and they pointed out that her actions seemed selfish and unstable. They encouraged me to consult a lawyer about our apartment lease since she wouldn't agree to let me change it without her permission. As I reflected on our relationship, I realized that while she could be charming and friendly with others, her demeanor towards me was often harsh. I had always thought that she was nice outside of our disagreements. But now I was starting to see a different side of her. She had a way of making me feel guilty for not connecting with her online friends, people I had never met. It was as if she was trying to control my social interactions. I decided to take a step back and evaluate the situation more critically. My brother sat me down and helped me devise a plan. He suggested I withdraw the money I had saved in our joint account, which was meant for our wedding. I had contributed significantly over the past year, and it felt wrong to leave it accessible to her, especially since she had ended our engagement. When I took the money out, things escalated quickly. She was furious, claiming I had stolen from her, even though I had only taken out what I had put in. Her reaction was alarming. She started bombarding me with messages, calling me a thief and insisting that I should have left the money in the account for our shared expenses. I tried to keep everything documented in texts, avoiding in-person conversations to ensure clarity. Things took a turn for the worse when she began contacting my mother. At first, I thought it was just a few calls, but then it spiraled out of control. She would call my mom late into the night, sometimes 36 times in one evening. My mother, who was already dealing with health issues, was understandably distressed. My sister even had to file a harassment report due to the relentless calls. As I navigated this chaotic situation, I began to realize that I was better off without her. I had been so focused on the good moments in our relationship that I overlooked the troubling signs. My friends and family were supportive, urging me to prioritize my well-being. It was a tough lesson, but I learned that love should never feel like a battle. Now, as I move forward, I'm determined to find a healthier relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. I've learned that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the best outcomes. It's time for me to reclaim my life and focus on what truly matters. I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, sharing my story of navigating a relationship that turned toxic. It all started when my fiancée, whom I had been with for several years, unexpectedly ended our relationship. At first, I was blindsided, but as time went on, I began to see the signs of emotional abuse that had been lurking beneath the surface. After the breakup, things escalated quickly. My ex-partner began harassing me, reaching out to my family and friends, and even threatening them. It was unsettling to witness how quickly love could turn into something so dark. I knew I had to take action, so I filed an N28 form with the police, hoping to prove her behavior was abusive enough to help me get off our lease. However, the officer I spoke to didn't seem convinced that my situation qualified as domestic abuse, leaving me feeling frustrated and helpless. In the midst of this chaos, I sought advice from friends and online communities. One person suggested that I inform my employer about the harassment, which I hadn't even considered. I realized I needed to take every precaution to protect myself. I also spoke to my landlord about my situation, but he was dismissive and unwilling to help unless my ex agreed to take over the lease. It was clear that I was stuck in a difficult situation. As the days turned into weeks, the emotional roller coaster I had been on became more apparent. I decided to enlist my sister's help to retrieve my belongings from the apartment while my ex was at work. I initially planned to bring my brother. But given the volatile nature of my ex's behavior, my sister insisted on coming along for safety. We managed to clear out most of my things, but unfortunately, my ex returned home early. Tensions were high, and despite our efforts to remain calm, my sister confronted my ex about some missing items, including a gaming console. In a moment of anger, my ex threw a picture frame at me, blaming me for bringing my sister into the situation. That's when everything erupted. My sister stood between us, and when my ex slapped her, chaos ensued. The police were called, and my sister decided to file a report, which ultimately led to my ex surrendering the gaming console and admitting to throwing away some of my belongings. This incident caught the attention of my landlord, who finally took my concerns seriously. I was officially taken off the lease, which was a huge relief. Shortly after, my ex's mother reached out to me, expressing her concern about the reports I had filed. She wanted me to reconsider, worried about the long-term consequences for her daughter. I firmly told her that she needed to have a serious conversation with my ex about her behavior before I would even consider it. As I moved forward, I began to feel a sense of relief. I was grateful for the support I received from my family and friends throughout this ordeal. I started attending grief counseling to process everything I had been through and to work on rebuilding my life. I also took steps to protect myself further, including freezing my credit to prevent any potential misuse by my ex. Reflecting on this experience, I realize how important it is to recognize the signs of an unhealthy relationship early on. I'm thankful to be out of that situation and hopeful for a brighter future. My family and I are working together to heal, and I'm determined to start anew, free from the shadows of my past. I appreciate everyone who offered support and advice during this challenging time, and I hope my story can help others who might find themselves in similar circumstances. I never expected my life to take such a dramatic turn. At 28, I was happily engaged to my fiancée, or at least I thought I was. One day, out of the blue, she ended our relationship, leaving me reeling and questioning everything. Was this just a sudden change of heart, or was there something darker at play? As I tried to process the breakup, I learned that it wasn't just a simple split. My fiancé had been involved in some troubling behavior that I had been blissfully unaware of. It wasn't long before I discovered that she had assaulted not only me, but also my sister. To make matters worse, she had stolen from my family during a time of grief. My mother had recently passed away, and her actions felt like a betrayal of the worst kind. In the aftermath, I found myself grappling with a mix of emotions: anger, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. I knew I had to take action, not just for myself but for my family. I decided to press charges against her, hoping that this would serve as a wake-up call for her. I wanted her to learn from her actions, to understand the consequences of what she had done. After all, if the charges were dropped, what would stop her from repeating this behavior with someone else in the future? Despite the pain, I felt a sense of resolve. I was determined to see this through. Some people questioned why my family and I hadn't cut ties with her and her family entirely. They suggested blocking them to avoid the harassment we were receiving. But I knew that keeping a record of the harassment was crucial for obtaining a protective order. If we blocked them too soon, it would be our word against hers, and I needed to ensure that my mother and sister could file charges without any complications. I also found comfort in the support of my sister. She stood by me during this tumultuous time, accompanying me when I reported the incidents to the police. Having her there made a world of difference. The police seemed to take her words seriously, especially given the context of the harassment we had been facing. I felt incredibly lucky to have her in my corner, ready to stand up for me when I needed it the most. Reflecting on everything that had happened, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief that this all unfolded before our wedding. It felt like a protective force had intervened, saving me from a future filled with potential heartache. I hoped that by pursuing the charges, I could not only find closure for myself, but also prevent her from hurting anyone else in the future. As I navigated this difficult chapter, I realized that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most significant personal growth. I was determined to move forward, learning from this experience and finding strength in the support of my loved ones.